years have passed since the last recording of Blur, and it's amazing to see you guys together again.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you feel that way. Yeah, it is really cool. And I'm so glad that it's just come about in such a casual and spontaneous way, really, just between the four of us, and sudden bits of time suddenly appearing for us to do something. So it has been very nice.
I find it incredibly amazing that after those 16 years and many of the reports on the press about the relationship between you coming apart, that spontaneity makes this almost miraculous comeback happen.
Well, I think a lot has been said about our relationships, our up and down relationships, whatever. But they only got low for a little while. They didn't get terrible. I think really it was that thing of overwork and being very tired, and feeling obliged to write and record all the time, like it was in the 90s. But really the car we were driving in had to be crashed, to give us some sort of a rest, and that caused us to go our separate ways for a bit. But deep down, I don't think there was any problem really personally. We sort of lost touch, and we did different things, went on separate quests. But I think actually, in hindsight, it was the best thing that could have happened. I think that we needed to go our own ways for a while, and go walkabout like in Australia, and then come back with fresh inspiration and new ideas, and with more enthusiasm.
As you started drifting apart because of everything you just mentioned, was there ever a point in your career as a musician while you were working on your paintings and on your solo albums that you felt, or you may have thought, that Blur was just over and that it wasn't going to happen again?
Oh yeah, there was times when I thought perhaps it's an irretrievable situation, but this was just because of a very English kind of embarrassment of confrontation. If we didn't have this thing where we were afraid, or maybe I was very afraid to face the other boys and always say what was on my mind, and I think English people have it badly, especially in bands, where they might communicate through the management rather than talking to each other after a while, which is really childish, and so communication is really messed up, and I think that's the worst thing. I think communication and honesty, you've got to be really sort of straight shooting with each other in a group, especially if it's going on for a few years and you start having separate social lives, living separately, and your own domestic situations are getting more complicated. You really have to communicate really straight. What has been good though is that we've got through all that, and we don't, like Damon and I, we don't have to prove to each other how much we value each other now. We just know it, we know it. We made all that effort to get back with each other and to make music, on stage, and to relive all of our past music that we've made, and so it just seemed very natural that something would happen, some spell would be worked between us, and then out of kind of, not nothing, but out of a few simple days and a few garage band recordings, a kind of a record starts to be born. So it's kind of, it's good,
What exactly happened that made these recordings possible?
Well, being in Hong Kong, and then having some festival in Japan cancelled, and then thinking that it would be really silly to go all the way back to England for a few days and then come back out to Jakarta. Rather, what we did, we stayed in Hong Kong, and then someone found a studio. Damon said, hey, I've got a few ideas, really loose things, chord sequences, etc. Let's just go in the studio and jam, and just sort of see if anything happens. the next day we were going on the underground tube, the subway in Hong Kong, and going to this, intense studio situation. We got very intimate in the studio. We crowded ourselves together in the control room. We didn't really use the big live rooms. We wanted communication to be very fast, visual communication, and we just played like 7 hours a day for 5 days. And we got something like, 13 or 14 extended sort of, I guess they're called jam sessions. I don't really like that. But we played based on we made sounds that were pretty much based on our immediate environment, our immediate experience. And Damon said phrases and words that were really to do with how he was experiencing that day and his environment and where we were. And it turned into some really interesting stuff because we had a limited arsenal of instruments. We kind of had just a few things. I had this new guitar I was trying out, and so we just played, and we were playing this chord sequence, and Damon would shout, go to E flat here, blah blah blah, and so we'd go to E flat, and so there was something like 13 half an hour jams, 14, it was like 7 hours a day, 5 days, so it's quite a few hours of music, and then that was it. We packed up at the end, and then we went to Jakarta and had a great show there, and then we went home.
Graham, I have to ask you something. I really admire the way you play guitar. I really think it's different,
Okay.
So I have to ask you this because I remember when I fell in love with music, it was early in the 90s, and in Colombia and Latin America, we always get lots of North American music, so it was grunge all over. But when I put my hands... When I put my hand for the first time on a Blur record, I was like, I was thinking, what is this guy doing with the guitar? Because it was different for me. I was a teenager, and I was actually trying to play guitar. So I guess I have to ask you, this might sound like a stupid question, but it's something that I've always wondered, and now that I have the chance of talking to you, what has inspired the way you play guitar? Because I've listened to a lot of Britpop in my life, lots of bands. I love European music, but I think you have a different sound as a guitar player.
Well, I don't know really. It comes from listening to a lot of music, and the guitar players that inspired me growing up were, it was a mixture of late 70s, new wave music, post-punk music, like anything from Rainbow to the Buzzcocks to the Jam, and then the Kinks and the Beatles always, and the Who and stuff like that. I mean, that's the stuff that. But I think I pretty much pick up anything from whatever I listen to, so it sort of always ends up in there somewhere. And a lot of crazy hippie stuff as well, like gong and progressive music as well, like Can or Vandergraaf Generator, all that kind of stuff. It just goes into my big rucksack of influences, I carry about. Ends up coming out somewhere on the guitar. I think most successfully it comes out when I've been sort of interpreting what Damon's saying lyrically or whatever. I think it's just sort of a weird telepathy. Yeah. But I think mostly I get it right. Sometimes I don't. But I think when I feel what he's getting at, I play the guitar out. It comes. We've had a long time to practice it, and I think we're getting good at it now.
There are too many of us.
One last question. Do you enjoy recording more than you do playing live, and particularly when it comes to this current situation?
Well, I love the studio. I love to create, and I love the idea that you've done a day's work and then you go home and there's the knowledge that you've recorded music that might well be there forever or something, for a long time, and that's a really fulfilling situation. That's for me is really exciting. And then you go home afterwards and you have your dinner and watch the telly. That's what I like. Yeah. But you can do the same after a gig as well. you sit around with a bunch of friends, you will have a laugh, and you go on and play a couple of hours on stage, and it feels really good, and the audience are there to really give it all back to you. You know, you go on stage feeling really crap, like you don't really particularly want to do it, and then within a couple of minutes, the audience have made you really happy to be there, and you love it, and then you can go home and watch telly after at the hotel if you want, or you can go out with your friends and have a good time. So that, I mean, they're both very different. I like them both equally, you know.
Streets like a jungle.
I don't know. You tell the record label, you tell someone in the UK, you know, like when it comes to record labels, that you're about to put a new Blur album out?
Well, no, we didn't tell anybody. We didn't even tell our families until we were just about finished, because we didn't want anything to go wrong. And when Stephen and I played it to Damon, we weren't even sure that he was going to like it or anything like that. But he did like it, and he liked it enough to really commit quite quickly on writing lyrics and really getting involved with it, and adding keyboards and the rest of it. And so on his way back from touring in Australia, he dropped off in Hong Kong again for 48 hours and dragged himself around Hong Kong, and went on the same subway train and went out on a boat to Ireland and wandered around and took notes and filmed and took pictures. I don't know, just examined the place again and re-immersed himself in it all, and got loads of lyrics together and came back. And I think Damon finished the lyrics, and then we mastered it, and then we announced it all in the space of like 2 weeks. So it was very quick.
It seems to be kind of like a hierarchy, you know, when it comes to Blur.
Well, I don't know whether there's a hierarchy. I think there's... Well, it's difficult. I mean, me and Damon have been friends for a long, long time. We've got a lot of history. Since, I've known him since I was 11, but we became friends when I was 12, 13. And so we go back a long way. And our relationship right off the bat was about music. It wasn't about, you know, it became about other things, about friendship and all kinds of things and experiences. But we got together because of music. And it's been similar with Dave Rowntree. I got to be friends with him via some of the bands in Colchester when we were growing up, teenagers and things like that. But the thing is that Damon and I write music, so we're always going to be really wanting to get in amongst the musical side of things. So it's just how it is.
Mr. Coxon, once again, thank you very much for accepting this conversation with Colombia.
That's a pleasure.
Let's take care. Good night.
Hope to see you. Bye.
Come to Colombia. Bye.
All right, we'll try, yeah.
Yeah, do so next year. We want to see you. Bye.
All right then. Bye.